Nylig så hadde vi besøk av vår venn Israel Pokhtar fra Ashdod. Han pastor for 7 menigheter, og vi ble enige om at etter rådende omstendigheter som har skjedd nå den siste tiden, at vi skal dra til Knesset og be om tilgivelse på vegne av det norske folk.
Norge har hatt et historisk vennskap med Israel, og vi kan bare ikke være stilletiende nå om det som skjer i landet vårt og det regjeringen har gjort. Derfor så ønsker vi å lage en deklarasjon som vi skal sende ned til statsminister Benjamin Netanyahu, Knesset og selvfølgelig til eget storting, så vær med og skriv under på dette her, så skal vi ha en sterk røst. Sammen for Israel og det jødiske folk.
Shalom.
Declaration. Forgive us, Israel. It took several days before Norway finally called Hamas a terrorist organization, following the terrorist attack on October the 7th. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs advised the King not to extend condolences to Israel, advice which the King followed. Such a lack of empathy and malicious attitudes from a country like Norway is alarming. On March the 7th, 2024, the Norwegian government issued a press release advising against trade and commercial activity with Israeli settlements, depicting Judea and Samaria as occupied territory. We distance ourselves from this. Judea and Samaria are the original lands of the Jews, and encouraging boycott of companies that have many of their employees in a painful war makes life more difficult for many already hard-pressed Israelis. We acknowledge with sadness that Norway did not support the WHO declaration calling for the immediate release of all hostages held in Gaza and condemning the use of hospitals and ambulances for war purpose. In the aftermath of October the 7th, the political leadership in Norway has appeared half-hearted in distancing itself from Jew hatred. Now the demonization of Jews, anti-Israel news and harassment of Jews is at a new height, as before World War II. During demonstrations against Israel's defense campaign against Hamas, slogans calling for the eradication of Israel from the map have been shouted, such as "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." The same kind of slogans were spread also on social media and in other ways. This is an incitement to genocide. Such statements have not been punished or curbed by the Norwegian state and police. The Norwegian government continues to support UNRWA, which employs terrorists among its staff and teaches the children in schools in the Palestinian territories hatred of Israel and the Jews. Norway as a nation has not yet recognized Jerusalem as the country's capital. Although Jerusalem has been chosen by Israel as its capital, and since the time of King David, about 3,000 years ago, has not been the capital of any other country than Israel. Forgive us as a nation, Israel. Norway's international work for peace in Israel. Norway took the initiative for the Oslo Accords in 1993, which called for the division of Israel. The Oslo Accords led to the establishment of the Palestinian Authority. Together, they and Israel were to achieve a coexistence where they could live peacefully together. The leaders of the Palestinian Authority have for these 30 years supported terror and taught the young generation to hate Jews and Israel. We acknowledge with sorrow the Norwegian government's recognition of Palestine on May the 28th, 2024, where Israel's borders are set according to the 1949 armistice lines. We regret Norway's official lack of support for Israel in the challenging and defensive war they are engaged in, while on the other hand they support the creation of a nation that engages in terror. Hamas thanked Norway for this. Forgive us as a nation, Israel. The war and its victims. Israel has endured indescribable suffering through the terror and the hostage-taking on October the 7th, and the subsequent war. Many soldiers also have been killed. Families have been evacuated, and there is pressure to live under the threats from Hamas and other terrorist organizations. The people of Gaza also are suffering from the war. Hamas terrorists wear civilian clothes, use civilians as shields, and fire rockets from populated areas and public buildings. Hezbollah in Lebanon is also doing the same. Israel makes a commendable effort to avoid harming civilians, but it is impossible in such a densely populated area. Gaza has a border with Egypt and a coastline towards the Mediterranean Sea. If other countries had wanted to and had followed the UN's Refugee Charter, they would have taken in civilians, women and children. A lack of open borders and hearts in other countries means that children and civilians are suffering in Gaza. Forgive us, Israel, for Norway not doing enough for those who are suffering in Israel, Gaza, and other countries because of war against Israel. The Church of Norway and congregations in Norway. Replacement theology has provided fertile ground for anti-Semitism, and we ask for forgiveness for all anti-Semitic attitudes and anti-Zionist attitudes that have been in the Church from the beginning until today. We ask for forgiveness for priests and bishops who have condemned Israel's defense fight, and for those who have called for a boycott of Israel. Too many churches and Christian leaders have not sufficiently preached nor clearly enough about Israel in our circles and stood up for truth in the public space. Forgive us as a church and congregations, Israel. Education and media. We acknowledge with sorrow that several educational institutions in Norway have broken off academic cooperation with Israel. We regret that many different media throughout Norwegian society, including Norwegian schoolbooks and encyclopedias, have provided incomplete and biased portrayals of the conflict in the Middle East, presenting Israel in a poor light. Forgive us as a nation, Israel. Jews in Norway. In a survey, 81.6% of all Jews say that experiences after October the 7th have made them consider whether Norway is a safe country for Jews. This has resulted in already one Jewish family in Norway feeling forced to leave the country and travel to Israel. Forgive us as a nation, Israel. Proclamation. We confirm that Israel has the right to defend itself against attacking forces and against terrorists, and the right to have secure borders. We proclaim that with Norway's approval of Palestine, the Oslo Accords are dead. Israel is a nation that has blessed the world with advances in technology, research, and agriculture, among other things. Norway has a calling to cooperate with Israel it leads to blessing for both parties. We recognize that Norway has been blessed because we have built our nation on the Bible and our Judeo-Christian heritage. Norway has a calling to bless, cooperate with, and support Israel and the Jews. As Christians, we acknowledge God's promises to Israel also regarding the land. We distance ourselves from all forms of replacement theology. We recognize that the Messiah is a Jew and that salvation comes from the Jews. There are many who love Israel in Norway and who support the Jews in Norway. We want to stand up and speak the truth about Israel and the Jews. Our friendship with the Jewish people and the state of Israel is unchanged and stronger than ever.